This is Fearlessly Fertile. Welcome to the Fearlessly Fertile podcast, episode 345, Fertility from the Inside Out, an in-depth conversation with Dr. Zach Bush, MD. If you are anywhere active on social media, there is zero question that you have seen some of Dr. Bush's content. Dr. Zach Bush is known all over social media for his strong advocacy at really taking a look at our microbiome and looking at regenerative farming practices and connecting to the earth and really looking to our inner wisdom for true healing. Dr. Bush has specialties in internal medicine, endocrinology, and hospice. He has seen through all the different stages of life how important your microbiome, your overall health, your spiritual connection, your connection to the earth, and all of these things that make us human are critical to not only the experience that we create for ourselves in this life, but ties us back to our responsibility to the earth and each other. Dr. Bush and I dig deep into the power of the mind-body connection and our own influence over our health. I hope that you absolutely devour the interaction that I had with Dr. Bush. I'd get something to write with and write on as you're listening to this podcast, because Dr. Bush is going to be dropping amazing bombs of love about truly how to take care of yourself, the kinds of things that we need to consider as women on the fertility journey, how to feel more connected and in our bodies in the process. So I hope you love this conversation with a truly extraordinary proponent for humanity and human health, Dr. Zach Bush. The reason why I wanted to have you on is I'm just fascinated by your work, and I love the conversations that you've had and some of the discussions you've had about gut health. And I wanted to zero in on fertility because in my work, I see women from all over the world, lovably type A, control freaky professional women who, when it's time for them to have their family, when they decide that they're ready, they just get ushered into this way of approaching themselves and their fertility in a way that is decidedly separate from nature. So I thought you would have something really interesting to add to that conversation.
Beautiful. That's certainly where I began my medical career. I didn't actually even plan to go into medicine. I was going into engineering and then took a year off and went to the Philippines with an aunt of mine who was working over there with a group of international midwives. And so I had the opportunity to birth babies for 6 months with that group of midwives and watched an incredibly beautiful journey of holistic care for women. And the process of women taking care of women on the floors of these, tin shacks with grass, with mud floors and raw sewage running outside. And it was just like the most abject poverty on one level, and yet the wealth of care and the wealth of connection that these midwives and the community had around these women was really profound. And so I got to see the beauty and miracle of life again and again in that context. And that ultimately redirected my life. Ended up in medical school after that and went down the pathway of endocrinology and metabolism. And endocrinology is the study of hormones and how they regulate everything from fertility to pregnancy to the vital state of being alive after birth, and these processes of ultimately metabolism, which is the energetics of life that is liberated through mitochondria, which are these little bacteria that live inside of human cells that are taking the light force of your food and putting it back into sunlight so that a biologic creature like yourself can burn as bright as you do and do all of the intense work necessary for life to occur every millionth of a second. And so that was my area of expertise. I went down an energetic pathway in my research to study cancer, which is kind of the opposite of life. And so what happens when the metabolism reaches such a low state that a cell starts to express cancer instead of a connected relationship to its community of a human body. And that really was a journey into a deep look at where life comes from and how does it occur and how can we begin to take a much different approach to supporting life. As you say, my field of medicine has basically victimized the mother before she's even pregnant. And so it turns her into a victim of the disease of trying to get pregnant. Somehow that is qualified as a disease process. And so if you're trying to get pregnant, then you're surrounded by technologies and hormone advice and nutrition advice and all kinds of things that may or may not be true for you. And for that, there's an immediate disempowerment of that woman. And I saw that, the difference between women in the Philippines birthing babies and women in the United States was just a massive disempowerment. And the women ultimately in abject poverty were feeling more empowered in their capacity to deliver a baby into this world than women with all of the affluence and wealth of the West. And so it's an interesting, beginning of my career. And I can just say over the last, 30 years of that career, I've just seen deeper and deeper into the issue of diseasifying and then offering technologic solutions to the belief that fertility and pregnancy itself and certainly labor are all these dangerous disease processes. And for that, we end up with a fear, guilt, shame kind of paradigm that really weakens the integrity between who you are, which is an ancient soul that has now shown up in this moment of being human, and yet you're not given any ability to plug into the greater power that's inside of you as a woman in this matrix of the Western medical paradigm. So delighted to have the conversation. I think it's a critical one for our time. We've never faced a higher rate of infertility than we do today. This rate of infertility is threatening the survival of our species, and so it's a topic that we must focus in on as a society. So thank you for starting us off.
It's interesting, Dr. Bush, because the most recent information coming out of the CDC, whatever we might think of that, at least what they're putting out there is it's 1 in 5 couples. That's an emergency. There's some countries on the planet that are looking at non-replacement numbers, like South Korea, and it's really shocking. Yet this doesn't get much attention. And even when it does, exactly as you're saying, it gets diseasified. And the first thing that people are ushered into is technology. Like, this is the answer. Like, there isn't a bigger conversation about what we can do as individuals. And I love how you pointed out, like, look at these women in the Philippines in abject poverty. They felt more empowered than women in affluent countries. And so what do you think that's about?
It's a steady divorce from nature that's happened in our what we would call modern societies, or our wealthy countries. With wealth has largely been a process of creating products that separate us from nature, that create the sense of peace, convenience, and comfort. And so we've built these massive extractive force consumer industries largely so that everybody feels comfortable and is not having to face nature every day. We don't have to grow food. We don't have to cook food. We don't have to share food. We don't have to be responsible for our health. We just go to the doctor's office and they hand it to us in a pill. We don't have to be responsible for changes in temperature. We just turn on the heater and the air conditioner. We don't have to be responsible for walking up hills anymore. We make sure that we've got a car for any transfer of energy that would not be necessary to walk up the mountain. We've got e-bikes now instead of bicycles, so that we don't have to pedal hard to get somewhere. So we've literally just built a massive system of convenience and comfort. And for that, we've created a giant atrophy in the human condition in our steady divorce from nature. And for that, it's easy for a medical system to step in and say, wow, I know you feel so weak and vulnerable. Here's your solution. Because you're not, it's been too many generations since a woman was empowered to ask, where does birth come from? Where does life come from within me? And for that matter, how did I birth myself out of my mother's womb? What was that about? How did I take one cell into 70 trillion cells to become an embryo? Actually, my mother couldn't even see that happening. She was blinded to me by progesterone, so she could not see me so that she wouldn't kill me. If the mother sees the infant for a single second, the immune system will attack it and destroy it. The progesterone in the womb is designed to mask the entire process from the mother so she can't see what's going on in there. So the process of becoming a conduit for creation is you have to blind yourself to the process. And so for that, you are the miracle. You are the miracle that birthed yourself. You created yourself in your mother's womb. You were the one that designed the body that you live in, and you keep redesigning it. Long after you left your mother's womb, you are reinventing your body every millionth of a second at the atomic level. You're disappearing, reappearing, and materializing out of a design that's yours, not your mother's, not your father's. This is your design of who you are, and you bring that forth every millionth of a second. The cells are turning over at an extreme rate. The largest cellular organ in your body in surface area is your gut lining. Covers a whole tennis court in surface area. It is brand new every 3 days for your entire life. You are rebirthing hundreds of billions of cells every 3 days and replacing your entire gut. You are a generative rebirthing machine, and that's you birthing yourself. That's not your mom designing you, birthing you. It's not your father contributing to it. That's you as a container of self, recreating yourself constantly to the original design that you knit together in the womb. And so this is the miracle that you have been taken away from and been taken out of you.
Wow. What you're saying is we are creators. We are literally creating our experience.
Creating your body, creating everything in it, creating certainly the feelings that would come coursing through there, the thoughts that would come percolating up from your gut to your mind. There's all kinds of experiences you're having right now because you're creating self. And that self is an identity that precedes and postcedes your body. And this is something I learned in the latter part of my career. My third subspecialty was in hospice and palliative care. So I was admitting 80 patients a week to die for 4 years. And so when you see that much death and dying, you get a lot of glimpse across the other side of the veil. And so on the other side of the bookend of life, talking about birth and fertility and all this, on the other side is a rebirth process. And I've never seen one of those, lucid death experience where somebody's not drugged up in an ICU and is actually be able to be at home, have their loved ones around them. Every one of those is a massive rebirth process. You see their soul come forward. They speak to the truth of their life that they've just lived. They start to get glimpses of the lives they will live. They start to get glimpses of the many lives of their ancestors and deceased family members from past. They're crossing this veil of this thin, false reality in some ways of the time continuum that our 3D reality continues to permit us to believe. But the fact is that your identity stays intact when you leave that body. And this is every near-death experience you've ever heard. People leave the body, they go travel around the world, they go to different parts of the cosmos, different planets, and then they come back. And the whole time that they're telling you the story of what happened, I am, and then I was there, and then I am there, and then I am there, and now I'm here. All of that I am never changes. And that's the sensation when you actually get to see a child born by natural birth, not by C-section, not by a spinal anesthesia. When a woman really goes through natural childbirth, so that the baby's not seeing anesthesia in those first few minutes of life, they come in with a sight that is just chills the bone. Like they are seeing you from their infinite self. And the first time an awake child that hasn't been exposed to anesthesia can see you, you suddenly will be seen in a way you've never been seen by another creature. And this is what changes a mother instantly. It's not that the baby arrived, it's that she got seen by that baby. That's why mothers are changed immediately. And so this is the I am power that happens at the deathbed that so many people are missing out on because their loved ones are dying in nursing homes or in hospitals and ICUs. We are isolating ourselves from the first glimpse of God on the income, and we're divorcing ourselves from the opportunity to see that divine nature of creator within the individual as they depart. And so this is what I'm really eager for our next iteration of humanity to do is we got to reconnect deep on this. We got to go to the I am part of each of you if we're going to make it through this extinction process. And frankly, we're already well below. In the United States, we're at a birth rate of 1.61. The non-replacement rate is 2.1. We're at extinction trajectory in the U.S., working in Saudi Arabia right now, which has got a birth rate or an infertility rate of 67% of women coming into their clinics right now. It is a global. Japan will be gone in the next 10 years just from aging out because they haven't had children in decades or in generations. And so Tokyo is thought to have 35 million residences empty by 2035. One city. And so we are about to see a disappearance of humanity at a rate never seen before, certainly because of the chronic disease epidemic, certainly because of the pandemic situations we're creating for ourselves, and then the chronic diseases, the amount of rapid cancers, heart disease, all that stuff. But it's also just a phenomenon of age. We didn't replace the generations for generations. And so we're aging out as a human population, and we're disappearing quickly. And so this whole story that we have too many people, we have all those things, that is not true already. That is already not the right scientific story, and it's not the right human story. And so we need to place, as a society, massive importance on future mothers, current mothers, and the children that they will offspring. That's the future of our species, and we have to understand that this is an empowered force, like you said, of creator. This is a force understood and known since the beginning of life, let alone of motherhood. And so this is a force that works. It has been working for billions of years. Mothers of every species know how to do this work. And so the known work, the known process, the phenomenon of life coming through life, this is a well-trod path that has worked for billions of years on this planet. And so we need to quickly trust the nature within us to understand that it has been doing it long before human and will keep doing it after human. And then trust the soul that's entangled with that temporary biology of being human, which is you. You as an identity, and I am that existed before and after this lifetime, are having this experience, and we can trust both the biology of billions of years and the soul of eons to do this work and do it well and be empowered to know how to ignite this possibility of creator within you. There are so many levels to drill down on, and it is so important to understand that there's no personal failure in the process of trying to get pregnant or carrying a pregnancy or going into labor. There's so many things stacked against our reality right now of these artificial realities, artificial foods, artificial chemicals in our foods, lack of actually real water, living water is missing from our daily experience, lack of bathing in natural systems of rivers and lakes and oceans. We're not getting in the elements that allowed life to occur. And it's in this isolation that you feel vulnerable, and you then are prone to these technological solutionings of what is an impossibly complicated and beautiful thing that you're already empowered to do.
It's extraordinary, Dr. Bush, because I lived a fertility journey for 7 years, and then the women that I work with are typically over 35, have been trying for over 2 years, and they find themselves in a place of this sense of disempowerment that we were talking about. But going to another point that you made is about trust. It's almost as if over time, women have been encouraged to disconnect from that internal knowing and the internal trust of their bodies. I hear it over and over again that, oh, if IVF didn't work for me, I must be broken, or there must be something innately wrong with me. And nobody's really asking the question about whether that was right for them to begin with, or if they're doing some of the things that they would need to do in order to leverage that technology, if that's even needed.
Yeah, I think we could back up for a moment just to empower your listeners maybe with an understanding of what allows fertility to occur. So what is the target? What do we try to do to maximize the ability of a woman to become pregnant, maintain a healthy pregnancy, and then bring that child into the world? And it's actually a pretty simple equation in the end. My background is in endocrinology and metabolism. The second part of that specialty is understanding the mitochondria that produce energy inside the human cell. So that's the metabolism side of the specialty. The endocrine side, again, is the hormone side. The metabolism side was where I spent most of my time in research, and that's what got me into cancer research and the rest. Disease is ultimately a diminished state of metabolic energy. It is when the energy inside a cell diminishes, disease is inevitable. And so what we are seeing in this infertility phase of humanity is a decrement in the amount of light energy available to the human cell that we would call an egg or a sperm. The brightest thing that happens in nature is the egg of a woman. And the moment that that thing occurs at its fullest brightness is the moment of conception. And so you can uh, take a look at the human body as a whole, and you'll see 200 mitochondria per human cell. And so my skin cells, my muscle cells, my liver cell, 200 mitochondria inside of every single cell, which is extraordinarily different than what you'll find in a textbook. If you look at a drawing of it inside of a cell, you'll see two mitochondria. If they drew it correctly, all you would see is mitochondria, so they can't do that. So they give you two, and then say, and then here's the nucleus, and here's that has the DNA in there, and here's the Golgi complex, and they show you a few other organelles in there. But the fact is, every single cell is crammed full of these bacteria that we call mitochondria that are churning out life force energy for the human cell. We now understand the aging process and chronic disease processes to be a diminished number of mitochondria and diminished function of the mitochondria that are still there. And so what's generally happening is we're losing the soil of life. So soil outside your garden is doing the exact same thing. The more microbes you have per cubic centimeter of the soil, the more life force you have in your tomato plant and everything else fruits more, and there's more nutrients and there's more life. And so as the microbial density of soil systems or the cellular system of mitochondria diminishes in its life activity, there's less energy to do life. And so that average human cell with 200 mitochondria pales in comparison to the brightness of one egg, which has 600,000, more than 500,000 mitochondria in there. 500,000 mitochondria is necessary for you to get pregnant. If you don't have that much light energy discharge at the moment of conception, you don't successfully entangle the biology with the physics of a soul. You need an identity to become pregnant. The conception can happen, but if it doesn't have the light discharge bright enough to connect to a third identity, you never get a pregnancy. And so IVF is failing every year more and more severely because we're sticking sperm inside of eggs that don't have enough life force in them.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to stop you right there, Dr. Bush. This is freaking amazing. And this is such an important piece for women to understand, is that you were saying you need an identity. So what is that identity? How would you explain that?
I mean, we call it a soul in our spiritual circles. And so you need a child in the form of a physics identity before it becomes biologic identity. The same way in which you're starting to remember past lives, the same way that you're remembering human experiences that are not in this lifetime, the same way that you're starting to remember that there are indigenous practices and wisdoms that you can tap into if you go into stillness. You're remembering a different time and era of being in a form of human or other biology because the soul has been there. The soul is an identity that's permanent in space-time, and it's connecting to biologic opportunities to express itself all the time, probably. And the soul, a single soul, may be capable of animating many biologies at once. We don't know how that works. We've forgotten how that works. And so, but you do need that space-time phenomenon that we would call an identity to occur before it can a child will be there. Because we create conception constantly in test tubes and nothing happens. It doesn't turn into an embryo. Why is that? The amount of light has to discharge bright enough that it can entangle with something in physics that's permanent. When you think of any of the things we put convenient stories in spirituality or religion on, something like Mary Magdalene or Mother Mary or Christ or Buddha or archangels, my perception of that from a science standpoint is those are just very stable phenomenon. These are stable physics structures in space-time that will continue to touch biology all of the time. And they have a tone to them, they have a vibration to them, and in those frequencies are different codes, different information streams from the cosmos, from Creator. And so these permanent structures in space-time are what we could call souls. And so you have a soul. You have to have a physics identity that is unique from any other part of space-time galactic energy, or else you would not know self. And you know self. Maybe you haven't met yourself in your mind. No human really has. We're all confused about what self is in the head, but you know self at the cell level. And we prove that right as soon as conception happens. Because if the mother sees that egg that has now entangled with the other identity, she'll kill it as not her own. But minutes before conception, that egg peacefully moves through the most immune surveilled area in her whole body, which is the perineum between the ovary and the fallopian tube. There are billions and billions of antibodies looking for non-self material to destroy. And so that egg just peacefully moves through the whole system because it's mother. It's mother, it's mother, it's mother, it's mother. And then suddenly conception. And now if the mother's immune system sees that thing, she'll kill it instantly because it's not her anymore. That's what an identity is. An identity is a new cellular vibration, frequency, and remembrance of a form that cell is now going to split 70 trillion times to create an embryo. And in those cell divisions, every single cell knows the new identity. It doesn't know mother. It has no idea what father looked like. It doesn't know those cells. It has nothing to do with mother's body or father's body. By design, it has to have its unique identity from cell one, and it will persist without cellular identity until that person dies and the soul disentangles, and then all the cellular material dissolves, and self is no longer at the biologic level. Self is in the physics field again and will entangle with biology again. And so that's this bizarre thing that is this finite expression of a biologic identity that binds with a permanent identity that is a soul, or this, if you're uncomfortable with their soul, I just think of it as an identity. It's an
Yeah.
identity in space time. It's a physics phenomenon of geometries that are spinning in a very stable structure that's unique to every other identity or soul.
There's something else that you said that I thought was absolutely fascinating. And I think women need to hear again in order to understand, because you said that there has to be energy in the egg and the energy in the sperm that come together. It's this light. We have to have energy. So you can take a low energy egg and a low energy sperm, put them together, and there's nothing. And women will run with that and say, well, there's something wrong with me. But they're not taking a look at what was their energy, how is their mitochondria functioning, what is their own personal level of energy, their frequency, and then even their partner. So it sounds like there's a lot more going on than just having the perfect uterine lining, sperm count, and all these other things. There is a literal spiritual and physical thing going on that needs to be taken into account.
Exactly right. And so that's exciting, is that it gets that simple. Is how do we increase the amount of light energy in a sperm or an egg? And of the two, the egg is the most vital, because the egg, with those 600,000 mitochondria, there's a tiny amount of mitochondria inside the tail of a sperm, and it has to dump those mitochondria before the head of the sperm with the genetic information can get inside the egg. The biology is very much designed so that the father contributes none of the microbial information to the child. That whole organic garden inside the egg, 600,000 mitochondria, that massive biome, is wholly birthed by the mother. It is held by the mother. And so we need to stop poisoning our mothers through our food system if we expect to have any fertility of the future. So we need to stop the chemical dyes in our food. We need to spread the herbicides, the pesticides, the antibiotic usage by their doctors. We need to stop the chemicals in their cosmetics. Average daily exposure is 120 new chemicals that will disrupt the endocrine system and the mitochondrial brightness in the egg every time she puts on makeup. We have to stop this systematic poisoning of women globally that we've been in for hundreds of years, but it's really accelerated in the last 70 in extraordinary ways. And so we're literally poisoning mothers so that there is no human future. The exciting thing is that it's so fast to recover. It's just like a farmer who decides that they're going to stop spraying their field with chemicals, and one spring later they see an abundance that they just didn't even know was possible. And so regenerative farming is exactly what we need to kind of repurpose to regenerative health and biology for women right now. So what does that involve? It ultimately involves a reconnection to nutrient density and the movement of air, basically. And so you need respiration, you need nutrients, and you need to have a reduction in the amount of stress that the system is seeing. And so when you start to think of your own body or the egg as an organic garden, you start to understand what your daily routine might look like to support that future pregnancy that you're working towards. In the same way that you would care for soil, which is, all right, does it have enough water, sunlight? Does it have enough nutrient base? Does it have enough fertilizer in there? If so, great. Is there anything, stressors on the soil system that I need to take care of? It dries out in the middle of the day. I need to keep it covered. I need to keep an armor between the sun and the soil to protect it if it's getting dehydrated. These kinds of consciousnesses of what does my body need? What is this organic garden trying to tell me? And the exciting thing about nature is she's got so many streams of communication at any given time. She can speak to you telepathically. She can speak to you biologically. She can speak to you spiritually. She can speak to you psychologically. You just need to listen. And that's where Western medicine really does you the greatest harm, is they just bombard you with so much information and fear and guilt and shame that it just becomes overwhelming. Now you're Googling everything that you saw at the doctor's office, and it's days and days of going through Google pages of searches. And now it looks like everything on the online disagrees with itself. And so now you're freaking about nobody knows what the hell they're talking about, and there's too much information. There's just no silence because so there's no opportunity to listen to you and the nature inside of you. Nature will
Wow.
speak to you so well if you will have the discipline to listen. But that's where most women are really struggling right now, is in the discipline of pause. Western medicine has done a great unservice to us by calling it geriatric pregnancies after age 35 and all this ridiculous stuff. There's no there's no age limit to this process. The fact is, it's a biologic limit. How much light per cubic centimeter in the cell? That's what's going to drive your fertility, not your chronologic age. You've got a biologic age that is relationship to the organic garden within you, which is connected to the organic soil systems and water systems of the earth around you. So first thing is get out of the toxicity, which probably means move. If you're infertile right now, it means you're in an environment that is inherently toxic. And so you probably need to get out of your home. You need to get outside. You probably need to spend a lot more time in nature with your occupation instead of sitting behind a computer 8 hours a day. You probably need to get out of the cubicle and make sure that you're eating every meal outside with somebody. Eating in isolation does not have the same effect. Your bionutrients are less available to you if you're alone than if you're in fellowship around food. And this is what all blue zones have figured out around the world. People live over 100 years of age consistently when they share meals and fellowship around food, because everything becomes more biologically relevant. The light liberated from food is literally more powered when you are together. And we lost that togetherness when we went to the nuclear family, and we all leave our families to go get our education. We leave our school systems and the camaraderie of the student body when we go get a job. And our jobs, we leave every year and a half now is the average duration in a job in the country now. And so everybody is just transiently moving more and more isolated, more and more alone through a more and more artificial environment, to the point where they have no nature left within them or around them. And so it's reconnecting to nature and earth through the food you drink, through the food you eat, through the water you drink, through all of the systems of breath that you would breathe. These things are the place that you're going to begin again to start that garden back. And the garden will rev with you. The garden will really push things forward. And if you start to look at it, you as the project, instead of some future baby that does not exist yet, you will be much more fertile. As soon as you put your energy on the future baby that's not coming, you just created an artificial environment. You're now living in an artificial reality of expectations rather than the authentic reality of who you are right now. And for that, you're not going to be able to hear your own nature. You're not going to hear nature talking to you if your heart is all the way out there in the future for some baby that's not here yet.
That's so incredible, Dr. Bush, because I see this in women all the time who are so disconnected from who they actually are. They've abandoned their femininity. They take on this being of that's super masculine in order to achieve success based on a more masculine approach to success. I see this all the time in the women that I work with that are physicians, lawyers, teachers, nurses, engineers, and they get to this point in their lives where they're basically saying, is this all there is? Then it's when this health crisis of fertility comes into their experience that they start asking questions that are really challenging them to try to figure out, like, who am I really in this process? And I see it time and again that the more women start working on themselves, they start learning to trust themselves again. You can take a woman who had 5 rounds of IVF and she suddenly gets that light back and she can conceive naturally. It's like we need to start looking in a different place fundamentally and go back to ourselves.
That's it. That's the journey ahead. And if we don't, we're going to find the human species as a memory of this earth, which will be fine too. I have let go of my concern around that. Like, if we're supposed to end, we will end. There's nothing we can do about it. Like, I don't know that there's actually any free will in nature. But let's end well. Let's really wake up right now and experience the end really well, so that we make sure it's a good rebirth. Because what we leave behind is the future of the planet. Every extinction has been followed by the most extraordinary explosion of beauty, biodiversity, and intelligence. The nature is just doing it better and better every time by exponential volumes. one extinction led from reptiles to flying birds, mammals, and ultimately humans. That only took the stress of one extinction to achieve all of that transformation. And so the current extinction that we're in, where we've lost 50% of life on Earth over the last 60 or 70 years, we're losing a species every 20 minutes, 10,000 time acceleration in the extinction of species over the last 30 years. All of that is true and all of that is happening, but it doesn't mean that there's not a new beginning about to emerge. Every death is immediately preceded by a rebirth, a reconnection, because that soul is permanent in space time and it will reconnect to biology again. And so the next iteration of life on this intelligent and beautiful planet will include some aspect of you, I believe. I think there's going to be some aspect of your identity that will be in space time forever. And it may be here, it may be on other parts of the cosmos. It doesn't particularly matter. All that matters is release the fear of an end. When we use the word extinction, it's not the end of you or any other identity. It's the end of a current expression of all of those identities. And right now, when I look around the world, I see an enormous amount of inhumanity. We are treating each other with such horror. We are training our children that we worked so hard to birth to hate the child across the fence and kill them when they're 18. We are spending so much time spawning wars in our children and in their hearts and their minds. We are spending so much time creating wars against those that we see around us every day in our own hearts and minds. We are demonizing one another. We are killing one another. We are poisoning one another by words, by spirit, by energy fields, etc. We are really in an inhumane expression of self. And so do we really want to palliate that? Do we really want that to survive? Or are we ready to make this leap forward through a rebirth that's necessary on the other side of an extinction pressure? Let's rebirth the human experience and let's make sure it's our inhumanity that goes extinct. And to do that, we're going to have to burn brighter per cubic centimeter. We're going to have to tap into nature much harder than we have in thousands of years to reignite the energy of human expression to the identity that you have. The human biology, the human beingness that you're capable of can get brighter, and we know how to do it. It's breath, it's hydration, nutrient density, fasting, movement, play, community. These are the simple methodologies to rebuilding the energetic reality of your body and therefore your species and therefore your planet. It is all tied up in one thing, which is how much light energy per cubic centimeter. And we know the tools how to get there now. As you would take a good Epsom salt bath, go put these minerals in your body, the minerals of the ideas and the remembrances of people who are starting to unplug from the desperate pursuit of health and starting to accept the health that comes from their own bodies. It's
Yeah.
really a presence, it's an authenticity that's coming.
Well, and I think that your point about authenticity is so important, is going back and really starting to take a look around your life and ask, am I choosing this consciously, or is this something that I was programmed to believe? And I know that a lot of people don't like to ask those questions because it creates uncertainty, but I think it's through that uncertainty that we can create that authenticity to try to find who we truly are, as opposed to the matrix that so many of us were born into believing that we had to be perfect, that making mistakes is wrong, that we can't learn, and that somehow there's this incurable brokenness in us. And it seems like when we start to change that, we're literally, as you were saying, creating a different soil, really creating a different foundation upon which we can find the self, but also call in the babies that were meant for us.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm excited for this part of humanity. I think the pause is going to be good for us. And we saw this with the pause that we took when a global pandemic was storied to us and we experienced something together. And there was a bit of a universal pause that happened there. And nature improved. Nature bounced back quickly. And she's going to do that as soon as humans pause any of their activities. The vast majority of human activity on this planet right now is undermining the biologic life force of the planet. There's less mitochondria per cubic centimeter because of our plastics, because of our chemical cosmetic industry, because of our food industry, because of our apparel industry. And so everything you are touching in a day is poisoning the system and its capacity to produce light per cubic centimeter. And so walking outside and receiving information from nature under a tree, by lay down on the ground under a tree and look at the sky through the branches. There's so much information that can be received in that moment of quietness. It will clarify what you're supposed to do with your relationship that you're struggling in right now. The tree will show you your truth by just being a perfect mirror. It will give you the ability to feel your body for a moment and realize, wow, I have so much freaking stress right here in my chest right now. What is that? Oh my God, that is tears that are uncried. And so start crying. So cry under that tree until that feeling is metabolized. It will be a wave of energy that will move that through your body and you will be clear of it. So feel everything under the tree. And then the next day, go down and lie down and realize you have a massive knot in your belly because you're so afraid you're not going to have a baby, or you're not going to be loved, or you don't have a partner that can have a baby with you. You can't find that perfect person, and you've got this knot in your stomach that's just completely disconnected your head and your heart from your core. Your womb is completely hidden under this knot of anxiety. And so look up into the tree branches and let it start to unwind. Let the tree unwind your belly, and she will. That tree will steadily take apart the stress that's in your body by continuing to be still and then start to show you what's actually real. The sky is real. You are breathing that sky right now, every breath you take. The ground underneath your back is real. The grass is real that you're feeling beneath your toes. That stuff is real. Everything else that's driving you to the state that you are, in your infertile state or whatever it is because you're not looking up through the tree. You're not connected to the nature. You forgot what was important. Everything that's brought you to the level of stress you have right now was artificial. So all you have to go do is let go of the artificial reality. And the beauty that's behind that artificial veil is just unspeakable. And it's a daily practice because as blessed as I am with this life, I've seen more beauty under microscopes and through telescopes, more of the micro and the macro expressions of God than any other human on the planet because of the time I came along. I was paid to look through microscopes for 30 years. I would look through telescopes with my best friend who became the captain on the International Space Station because he was so infatuated with stars. And so we built telescopes. We would look through the microscopes during the day and we would go out at night and look through telescopes all through medical school. I've seen so much beauty, and I can tell you I still forget. I still forget, and I still allow the artificial reality to come between me and the beauty. And then isolation happens, and then loneliness happens, and stress happens, and poor sleep happens. And then you're scrolling on a phone, or you're eating all the wrong foods, or you're back to a drug relationship with food as you were before. You're reaching for plant medicines every weekend to try to get yourself back feeling like a conscious being again. Whatever it is, that nature is just sitting there waiting for you to crash so that you will hold still for a moment and look up through the tree. And so take that crash voluntarily and decrease the level of stress you need in your life to get you there. One way or another, you're going to lay beneath that tree as soil again. Your body is so temporary. It's going to be bright in its current form for such a short amount of time. So get out there in nature and breathe it before you're under that soil and get really connected. It's such a short, brief moment we have. We need to stop distracting ourselves and get sensually interconnected with this nature that we were born out of. It's our opportunity.
Wow, that is so beautiful, Dr. Bush. I just love that about you, that you're able to connect the science and the spirituality and the experiences in your life, and you're really out there teaching people how to reclaim that and come back into it. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is I love the ion products. I've been using them, and it's just extraordinary that you're taking this knowledge of years of experience under the microscope, looking through telescopes, seeing life, seeing death, and you've now created a product line that's really helping people regenerate the soil within them, in their gut, and their microbiome everywhere else to really enhance that health. So I'd love it if you just share a little bit about that so that people can get educated about it and bring it into their own lives.
Yeah. Many of you have heard this, from the increasing amount of information out in the field that gut health is the foundation of all forms of health and disease. And so disruption of the gut microbiome, the bacteria and fungi, leads to a dysfunction of the nutrient delivery. With that, you get decreased mitochondria or bacteria inside of your cells functioning, and so you have decreased light. And so it's this dance between the microbiome that will feed the body and the mitochondria that will release that energy into its functional light force. That's where we see this ion thing teaching us so much. So ion is an extract from fossil soil. This is 60 million years, so not just before this current chemical era of extinction, but before the last extinction. So last extinction, 55 million years ago, dinosaurs, etc. Before that, we had the deepest layers of topsoil that the Earth has ever produced. So you're seeing topsoil levels of 20, 30 feet deep. Those have been compressed into these fossil layers of ancient soil. And from there, we can actually extract these small carbon molecules that were made by that rich soil system back then to deliver a fluid communication network. So bacteria and fungi not only make nutrients, they also make the communication system that allows information to travel across biologic systems, one cell to another, one organ to another, one part of the soil to another through the mycelial network. So this communication network is really equivalent to a wireless communication network with your cell phone. And so if you picture a human body as 70 trillion cells, or you can picture the roughly 8 billion cell phones on the planet, they are all completely individual cells. They have their own battery, they have their own computer, they have massive function. But if the wireless communication network is not up, if the cell phone towers aren't running, nobody can connect and the organism doesn't function as a whole. So it's now as isolated, 8 billion cell phones. If the towers go on, then everybody's connected, everybody's calendars update, everybody's software systems update. You get the newest versions and updates on your friends and their activities. On your social platforms, everything's running and it's a full organism. You get to dinner on time with your grandmother. You get to drinks with your family and friends after that because you're connected through the wireless communication network. That same thing is happening at the cell level of your body. Not only are you nutrient deprived and light deprived, you are communication deficit status right now. And so ion puts back both nutrients and communication network into the human system through these extracted processes, the fossil soils. And so it just takes a small amount of this liquid suspension. It's a teaspoon 3 times a day. Ideally, the more frequently, the better. If you take it 5 times a day, it's even better. But we really encourage at least 2 to 3 times a day to really get this benefit of this constant upgrading communication of cell information streams. You cannot believe what happens over those first few months of being on the product as your cells start to talk to the other cells. You might have a priority of your concerns. I have a headache every day, and you want your headache to go away, and maybe you start taking iron, your headache doesn't go away in those first few months. So what the heck? It's not working. What's happening is your body is always healing in its sense of priority. And there's a lot of groundwork that has to be done before you start to do symptom management. And this is where pharmacy has been such a fallacy, is it goes straight after the symptom and never addresses the upstream problem. And so ion is your antidote to the pharmaceutical approach to treating symptoms. And frankly, the herbal market has done the same thing. They are all going after your symptoms. Let go of the concept of treating symptoms and start to get at building the soil. This takes some time. It can be a few months. It can be a few years, depending on how things are diminished, that you'll continue to improve. But you'll see benefits immediately. And the key is to watch your soil. Your soil is known as stool or poop. Watch the volume of soil that you have in your body. When you just drink a tiny teaspoon of this stuff a few times a day, your stools start bulking because there's more microbial life force going on there. There's no bacteria in the product. It's sterile. It's not a probiotic. Probiotics actually diminish the quality of your gut microbiome, not improve. So stop probiotics, start the communication network. And with the communication network intact, you're going to expand the biome, which is expanding the life force and literal workforce for the human body to do its work. Over 90% of the enzymatic activity, enzymes are the workforce of the human body. They detox your body, they produce nutrient results, they make proteins, they build protein structures that would be your cellular structures. The enzymes are the workforce. The enzymes are complex proteins folded from genetic sequences that rely on these micronutrients to be at their center point. And so the enzymes that drive a body are 90% derived from bacteria and fungi, not from human production. So it's not human genes that are making the enzymes of your body, only 10%. 90% are being made by the genetic information in bacteria and fungi that are living inside your body and on your body. And so that's an exciting thing, is that as you start plugging in ion, you're supercharging the microbiome. You're supercharging all of the cellular pathways, enzymatic pathways for energy production, antioxidants, all of this. And so things like glutathione go up, your antioxidant reservoir. Things like your inflammatory lipases and your inflammatory lipids go down, because the body is communicating and processing all that it needs to. A cell that has unfettered access, uninterrupted access to information is never going to disease because it repairs at such an insane rate. And so this is what ion gives back. The cell tone towers go back on, cells communicate, they begin the journey into a healthy future. And so it's been a real blessing to be working with this product for the last 14 years. The most amazing groups that we've put it in is mothers and autistic children. Mothers and autistic children do just phenomenal things with this product. These are, the mothers and children with these autistic disorders, I think, are angels among us to begin with. But I think they really are pushing the envelope of this recovery of metabolism. These are the ones that will find their path back to nature. Mothers and children with autism are finding all of our society back to nature out of a sense of necessity, because there is no solution for autism in the Western medical toolkit at all. And so the solutions come from reconnecting that child, and more importantly, the family perhaps to nature. And with that, the child's stress goes down, and the intelligence and genius will come through that child. And I'm so excited to see this generation, really 2 or 3 generations now, of autistic children and adults unable to be programmed with our old value systems and beliefs. They just can't. That's not possible. They see a different world than we do. They cannot be programmed with artificial realities. They can only see reality. It's a painful reality for them to see, and that's why autism can be such a struggle for a child. They are looking at a very painful world, while their adults around them seem to be deluded to the amount of pain, are not processing it. And we all need to walk out in nature and lay beneath the trees and let nature begin healing all of us and disentangling our hearts, our minds, and our bodies from the stress levels that we've put it through.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, Dr. Bush, how sometimes these crises are the invitation for an awakening and for a resetting of a false reality that keeps us all in suffering.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bush. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this wisdom and really encouraging women to see themselves and see the process of fertility in a very different way that not only connects them to nature, but connects them to their highest and truest selves, to call in these children that they want so dearly, and to not forget that they can trust themselves and that they have the power to heal within. So thank you for that.
Well, that's all of you. Blessings on each of you who are on a fertility journey. Dig into nature. Take care of your garden. She'll take care of you. And may you be blessed to see life coming through you. And also remember that women all over this world have been called to be here right now to birth something other than babies. We need to rebirth humanity right now, and that begins within each one of us. And so just know that you are the first child that will be born from your authentic centering. When you become centered, when you become really silent, you'll begin to rebirth yourself. And that might be a long journey, so be patient with your own birthing. Discover the woman that you are. That will take you to grand places that may or may not have to do with being married or having children. You will birth so much through you when you figure out the woman that you came to be. And that is a woman worth meeting. She's phenomenal. She created herself in her mother's womb. She needs no other external source to show her path. She knows it inside. And she can start to attract to her the beings around her, a community around her that can see the beauty that she's here to express and the life force that she's here to participate with, and the creation that's going to come through her. And that might be companies, it might be social systems, it might be new financial systems. We have to rebirth all of human systems. And you're part of that. You showed up here on purpose. And so maybe release expectations right now on what you came to birth. Maybe it's not a child right now. We'll begin with you. That's where I'm most confident you will find your reward. And so dig in there, discover yourself. I'm honored to be on this earth with you.
That's so beautiful, Dr. Bush. Well, thank you. And we're sending you so much gratitude and so much love. and so much success in what you have going on in future endeavors. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Blessings on all of you.
Loves, oh my gosh. I hope that you absolutely loved that conversation with Dr. Bush. I mean, think about all the incredible nuggets of wisdom that he shared with us here. I mean, there should be no question in your mind at this point that what you're thinking, what you're believing, what you're eating, how you're interacting with the earth, how you're living your life is playing out on your fertility journey. So I strongly encourage you, check out the Ion products. They are amazing. I use them and my family uses them. So we're going to include a link to Dr. Bush's Ion line in the show notes and really take a moment to digest what he was sharing. I wish we heard more of this on a regular basis. And this really encourages you to take a whole body, whole mind, whole heart approach to calling in this baby. And if you want my help getting the mindset piece of the fertility puzzle in place, go to my website, www.frommaybe2baby.com, and apply for an interview there. Because when you have your mind and body working together, you can make the seemingly impossible possible. So check out Dr. Bush and Ion. And if you're ready to take the next step with your fertility mindset so you have the mind and body covered, go to www.frommaybe2baby.com. Till next time, change your mindset, change your results. Love this episode of the Fearlessly Fertile podcast? Subscribe now and leave an awesome review. Remember, the desire in your heart to be a mom is there because it was meant for you. When it comes to your dreams, keep saying hell yes.